In 2025, a ranch deep in rural Mexico was discovered, its soil thick with ashes, its walls painted with silence. Locals called it El Rancho del Hur. What looked like farmland was something far darker, a training ground built by one of the world's most violent cartels. Hundreds vanished nearby. What investigators found were shoes, backpacks, and burned bones arranged like offerings to death itself. But this wasn't just a killing site. It was a machine for manufacturing monsters. Young men were lured with promises of work, then forced to become soldiers or die. Tonight, we step inside that ranch. Not through rumor, not through legend, but through what remains. They found it by accident. A group of farmers searching for lost cattle wandered beyond the broken fences and into the stillness of a forgotten field. At first, they thought it was smoke from a distant wildfire, but it wasn't smoke. It was the scent of something burned long before something human. Within hours, police surrounded the property. No signs of life, no animals, no crops, no people, just rows of blackened pits and the twisted frames of what once looked like barns. One officer described it later. You could feel the ground watching you. Forensic teams unearthed charred fragments, melted phones, and plastic tags used to track livestock. Except the numbers weren't for animals. Each one matched missing persons reports from nearby towns. Locals whispered that the land was cursed, that screams had echoed there for years, swallowed by wind and fear. Satellite images showed the ranch had expanded in secret trenches, tunnels, and makeshift firing ranges hidden beneath the soil. Behind the main house, investigators found a mural painted across the cracked stucco wall. A black sun surrounded by faces half human, half skull-drawn in soot and blood. No one claimed to have seen it before. No one would admit to knowing what it meant. But evidence pointed to the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of Mexico's most ruthless forces. Locals said they used this place to train recruits, to kill without conscience, to obey without question. Some said it was more than training, it was initiation. And those who failed never left the ranch alive. What happened on that soil blurred the line between warfare and worship, between punishment and ritual, and as investigators dug deeper, they realized this was not just a crime scene, it was a blueprint for terror. When the police cleared the first layer of ash, they didn't just find bones, they found signs of survival. A torn shoe half burned, its laces melted together. A message carved into wood with a nail. Todavía estoy aquí. I'm still here. 2 days later, a man stumbled out of the hills, barefoot and shaking. He said his name was Raul. He had worked at the ranch, not by choice. He'd been promised a construction job, brought in a truck, blindfolded, and told to dig trenches. By night, he heard screams. By morning, they burned what remained. He whispered that the men running the site wore skull masks and called each other hermanos. They fed the workers drugs to keep them obedient, made them chant before every killing, La Tierra Bibi, Nosotros obedecemos. The earth drinks, we obey. Raul escaped when a storm cut the power. He hid in the irrigation ditches for 3 nights, drinking muddy water until he reached the highway. The police wanted to believe him, but every word he said matched what they had already found. The murals, the tunnels, the pits shaped like altars. Forensics later confirmed his fingerprints on the shovels and the underground walls. He wasn't lying, he was surviving, and what he described next changed the investigation forever, because he claimed the ranch wasn't run by a single cartel cell. It was a cooperative. Different groups training together, overseen by a figure known only as El Pastor, the shepherd. A man who believed killing purified the soul. The deeper the police dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't a gang war. It was theology, and the sermon was written in blood. No one knew his real name to the men who served him. He was El Pastor, the shepherd. He never raised his voice, never touched a weapon, yet everyone obeyed. He claimed he could turn sinners into soldiers and fear into faith. Raul said El Pastor arrived once a week in a black SUV with tinted windows. He'd walk the perimeter of the ranch in silence, barefoot, murmuring prayers in Latin. The recruits would line up, heads bowed, waiting for him to choose who lived and who ascended. Those chosen were taken behind the main house. No one ever saw them again inside El Pastor's quarters. Police found relics that made no sense. A Bible hollowed out to hide ammunition, jars of animal hearts preserved in brine, and a rosary made entirely of human teeth. Every object had been placed with ritual precision, as if the man saw murder as a sacrament. Digital forensics later traced his sermons to encrypted voice messages sent across cartel networks. They carried no signature, but the voice-matched audio recovered from another massacre in Guerrero State 3 years earlier. Same cadence, same words, same promise: to cleanse the land, the earth must drink. Journalists tried to connect him to any known religious sect, but none matched his language. It blended Catholic liturgy with narco-mysticism, the cult of Santa Muerte twisted into doctrine. He preached that spilling blood in secret guaranteed salvation in the afterlife, a theology that justified every atrocity. By the time investigators identified half the fingerprints on the weapons, El Pastor was gone, his phone was off, his followers had vanished, and the ashes at the ranch were still warm. The shepherd had moved on to another flock, to another field waiting to drink. When word of the ranch spread, news crews arrived before sunrise, but by noon every feed went dark. Local reporters were ordered to cease on-site coverage for national security reasons. The footage vanished from every network within hours. An independent journalist named Lucia tried to upload her own video. It showed what the police had found that morning: rows of shallow graves arranged in perfect circles, each one marked with a wooden cross carved from shipping crates. The crosses weren't labeled with names, just numbers. 1 through 72, her post never made it online. The file was flagged, then deleted. By midnight, Lucia's account was gone. Days later, fragments of the footage reappeared on encrypted forums. Viewers could only describe flashes: gloved hands lifting burnt metal tags, a priest's collar folded in the dirt, a drone shot catching an entire field of burial mounds forming the shape of an eye. The eye of God, some said. Others called it the eye of El Pastor. Satellite analysis confirmed that every grave aligned toward the same compass point, west, facing the sunset. When investigators asked why, one officer whispered, "He said the sun carries the souls home." Government agencies denied all involvement. Press inquiries were met with silence or statements of ongoing investigation. But residents of the nearby town said black trucks came every night that week, loading sealed crates under police escort. Inside those crates, no one knows. But days after they left, the ranch was bulldozed. The soil treated with lime, the fences rebuilt, officially. Nothing ever happened there, unofficially. Everyone remembers the smell because in Mexico, erasing a crime doesn't cleanse it. It only buries it deeper. The first audio file appeared on an encrypted telegram channel. No one knew who uploaded it, but within hours, journalists confirmed the voice belonged to one of Al Pastor's lieutenants, a man known as El Corvo, the Crow. His words were calm, almost reverent. He said the recordings were meant as sermons, private lessons for new initiates. Each began with the same phrase, "To feed the land is to be forgiven." In one tape, you can hear laughter in the background, metal scraping concrete, someone sobbing quietly, then silence. El Corvo continues speaking as if nothing happened. He describes how victims were chosen by purity. Those who begged to live were spared not out of mercy, but because fear corrupted the ritual. He said the shepherd believed the only true sacrifice was one that accepted death in stillness. A second recording was worse. It captured what sounded like a ritual chant. Men repeating lines from a twisted prayer. We open the body to free the soul. We free the soul to cleanse the world. The tapes spread like wildfire. Within days, they were deleted from every major platform. Accounts that shared them vanished. Even major news outlets refused to air them, citing unverified authenticity. But leaked transcripts surfaced through reporters in Guadalajara, and one line burned itself into public memory. If you're hearing this, then you were meant to. To this day, no one knows how many recordings exist. Some say there are 13, others say they're still being made. Because when the police raided the next ranch, they found the same microphone still on, still recording, and still waiting for another sermon. Months passed before the world forgot about the ranch. The ashes were covered, the soil leveled, and the headlines replaced by newer tragedies. But in certain towns, people still whisper prayers before dusk, not to God, but to whoever listens in the dark. The shepherd's name was never found in any database. Interpol, Mexican intelligence, nothing. It was as if he'd never existed, yet his sermons continued to surface, disguised as motivational speeches, mixed into viral sound clips. I filtered until no one recognized a voice. They said his code lived on through a dozen small cartels, each one adopting the ritual, each one calling it a cleansing. The same circle-shaped graves, the same westward alignment, the same promise that death was not an ending, but a sacrifice. In a church outside Monterey, someone carved his symbol, the open eye, into the altar. The priest swore he didn't do it. The parish burned it away, but a week later, it returned, etched deeper, almost glowing through the stone. A journalist once said, "Cartels don't fear law. They fear belief." Maybe that's what the shepherd understood, that faith is the most efficient weapon. It just needs a different scripture. And so, even now, the message survives, buried in a voice note, hidden in code, echoing through the data streams that never die. Because in the end, evil doesn't vanish, it evolves. It learns how to speak our language. And somewhere, in another forgotten town, someone's phone just started recording. If you thought the horror ended here, you're wrong. What other dark rituals and forbidden practices are still being performed in secret? Dive deeper into the chilling world of haunted ceremonies, banned footage, and eerie folklore that refuses to stay buried. Click on the playlist to uncover terrifying recordings, lost evidence, and disturbing stories they never wanted you to see. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for weekly uploads of spine-tingling footage and dark tales that echo from the shadows. This is the Forbidden's Archive, where the hidden truth and haunting evidence come to life.